A very good afternoon. Where it goes without saying that the automotive sector is a huge contributor to the economy of South Africa. Just in 2000, last year actually, about 4% it contributed to the GDP, and over 722 billion rand contributing also to the country in terms of exports. So it goes without saying that a knock on this industry is a knock to the country and also internationally as well, especially in terms of load shedding. But joining us after midnight now is Professor Ncwadi, an economist. Tell us briefly about the effects that the load shedding is having, especially on such a huge contributor such as the economies of the country. Prof, just to speak briefly about the effects that load shedding is having, especially on big industries like the automotive sector.
Yes, it has a huge negative effect in the economy, of course, in the automotive sector. And it's said that, we are busy recovering the economy. We've experienced two major shocks in this economy recently: the 2008 global recession, followed by COVID-19. So the economy is staggering to grow. And when you recover the economy, you've got to make sure that all the necessary tools to grow the economy must be running 100% correct. But now in this case, we are unfortunately facing the load shedding, which is hampering production in the automotive sector, and also it sends an uncertainty to even the would-be investors in that automotive sector, because who's going to want to come and invest a business in an economy that's got no certainty in terms of power supply. It also poses a threat in terms of job creation. Remember that automotive sector employs quite a number of people, close to 40,000, if not over 40,000. So those are families that will be affected, should this sector not perform at its best. So that is a problem that the load shedding is actually posing on the automotive sector. It's called a supply shock. And a supply shock means that you simply raise the cost of production. Because remember that whilst load shedding hampers production, the employer has still to pay the costs. He has still to pay the salaries. So that might lead to them saying, look, we need to rationalize and reduce stuff, and reduce the cost. So as soon as we address the problem of load shedding in South Africa, the better it is for the economy in general and for our people. And of course, to be able to overcome the challenge of inequality, unemployment, of course, and poverty in South Africa.
And then, Prof, just speaking of the huge role played in terms of SABC and VW, they have pledged their support to South Africa. I mean, they've been here for over 70 years.
Yes.
But we have heard, obviously, there are concerns on their side as well about, is it productive now to have plants in South Africa when there's such a big issue? Do you foresee that perhaps in the future we could see plants like VW and SABC perhaps stepping out and saying that it's not really economically viable to have plants here anymore?
Certainly. Any business, wants to operate in an environment that's viable to do that business. So if the government doesn't listen to that voice and start to act accordingly to fix that, it's possible that we can get that problem, and we cannot afford to have that. So we need to address the problem of load shedding in South Africa as soon as possible. We need to look to invest in power generating equipment, power stations, look at alternative sources of power. But it cannot just be business as usual. The government is going to step in. Otherwise, yes, that is a threat that I'm afraid of. If that happens, then we are doomed in South Africa. There will be no way to recover from that.
And then also, lastly, Prof, in terms of our global competitivity as well, it does affect us because obviously we're not also only playing here locally, but competing with other big players also internationally. So that effect also is coming down now to South Africa as well.
Certainly, because remember that we export, these vehicles that we produce here. And of course, if you hamper anything that affects, if you hamper your exports and negatively affect them, it eventually even affects your currency, because we need to export. Unfortunately, we import some of our industrial equipment to produce. Now we want then that output to be exported to other countries to reduce to combat the effect of imports. Now, if your exports are affected, then it affects the power or the rand. And remember, we import our oil. Then we just simply going to have a problem in terms of improving the livelihoods of the people in South Africa, because we are not just only one player in this space. There's many other players that export. So we need to make sure that then we compete very well. So our global competitiveness certainly is going to be affected negatively, and is affected negatively by load shedding.
Thank you so much, Prof. That was Professor Mwade, an economist here in Gqeberha, just speaking about the importance of government stepping up, putting in measures to try and curb load shedding, saying that the automotive sector is a huge contributor in terms of job creation, the GDP, and the economic stability of the country, saying that we could see perhaps in the future big players stepping out and saying it's not economically viable to invest anymore. Obviously, this comes at the back of a statement that was released on the social media by someone saying that VW is pulling out of South Africa. We did speak to the VW spokesperson, and Lenny clarified that it's not true, that VW remains committed to investment in South Africa, saying that they're not going to leave anytime soon, but calling on government to step up and really improve the issue of load shedding.